Racism is still present in today's society, and we as Catholics must actively advance the cause of terminating racism. Major points in the letter was that the Catholic Church is universal, which means inviting to everyone. Correcting popular beliefs about the Catholic Church and racism. First of all, the Catholic Church is universal, and a quote I found in the letter said, Christ's face is the composite of all persons, which kind of touches on the point that Catholicism is the face of all humanity, and the Catholic Church turns no one away, and we are all God's children, and there is a unity of the human family through this. The next point was that racism disassembles unity. Racism and economic oppression are directly related, and that can't be denied. And this economic oppression disassembles unity. Racism is also a mutation of the human heart. We're not born racist, we're taught racism. So, us being taught this has mutated our human inclination to love one another. Racism is an evil that breaks the human family. We cannot have unity with racism, and without unity, we're not one human family. The next point is every race contributes a uniqueness to our society. Another quote I found in the letter was the contribution of each racial minority is distinctive and rich. And this really touches on the point that all races contribute something to our society, and that shouldn't be taken away. If it weren't for all these races, different races in the American society, our culture wouldn't be what it is today. And America is unique because of all of its contributors. We must combat racism. And that's my next point. If we are not actively combating racism, then we are accomplices to racism. And it is our duty to advocate for those who hunger and thirst, which is said in the Bible. So that's something that we can't deny. And being racist goes against that advocating for those who hunger and thirst. Each institution that bears the Catholic name must speak out to combat racism. And this is a really big point in the letter because we can't just not be racist. We have to speak out against racism because everyone's called to not be racist. That's a part of the human nature. But in order to combat racism, we have to speak out. The last point is the Catholic Church and how it relates to racism. And as Catholics, we are supposed to acknowledge our past sins and prejudices and fix them. The Catholic Church was known and still sometimes is known as a white church, and they kind of combat this in the letter by giving some statistics that 25% of Catholics are Spanish speaking, and there are 3 million black Catholics in the church, which makes Catholicism the leading church for black membership. And also Catholicism is becoming more prevalent in Native American tribes. A controversy is in the letter. It talks about how a subtle form of racism is believing that affirmative action should not exist, and this is controversial because some people have a problem with affirmative action because it's like taking money from the rich and giving it to the poor. But if you believe that we shouldn't have affirmative affirmative action, then that can be taken as a subtle form of racism. A contradiction in society is that the church teaches you that to not be racist, you have to speak out. And I think society teaches more that to not be racist, you just don't be racist. But the church teaches to go one step further than that, and that you have to speak out against racism. And then the teachings in the letter will be prevalent as long as racism still exists. In the diocesan curriculum, we talk about discrimination through the contribution to World Conference Against Racism, Racial Discrimination, Xenophobia, and Related Intolerance, which is another letter, and it was in 2001, so it was after the one that I read, and it basically says a lot of the same things as the one that I read, and this is really just teaching that racism is a sin and we must speak out as Catholics. Also, in the diocesan curriculum, we are taught about the dignity of each person and how everyone is created in the image and likeness of God, which definitely relates to my topic because racism, in order to combat racism, we must acknowledge that everyone is equal and everyone should have a unity in them. And then to end, I'd like to end with a quote from the letter. For the brother and sister of our brother Jesus Christ are the brother and sister to us, which really wraps up the whole letter, and just saying that we are all one family under God, and racism can't break that.